Pankaj, John Spielkla, Adam Rappaport, Vivek, Dr. Amanda, and Paul Beyer here with your Gen AI news briefing, rating tech news essential, optional, or important. And looking forward to an interesting set of things today, everything from reinforcement learning to how Walmart is doing fashion with AI. How about that? Pankaj, if you could give us the first one here, that would be great.
Sure, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from OpenAI, and it is a case study how Lowe has put project expertise into every employee's hand.
Yes, very interesting. The two apps here, one employees and the other is for clients to use when asking questions. You know, I did some research many years ago that looked at expert systems supporting sales processes. And one of the big findings was the more people know about the product or service, the more they buy, and the more they buy up in the product line, which usually means more profitability. So anyway, that's been my experience here. Adam, what do you think of this particular application?
John, I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, but looks like your picture is frozen.
Everything's frozen. I can't even tell if I'm off mute. So you've got me?
Yes, we've got you.
I can't look at the article either, so I'll just sort of wing it from what I remember. Lowe's, it's actually a really great use case. It's on the OpenAI website, which usually makes me think I'm looking at more of some sort of product announcement or something that's flash. But this was actually well written and had some good detail. And what I really liked is that they're basically leveraging the same solution, one for their customers on the website, and then one for the... Pardon?
I was saying yes.
Oh, yes. And one for their frontline workers who are actually out in the store fielding questions. And it's pretty brilliant, too, because they've integrated the voice. So while the person's out in the store helping a customer, they can actually just have a chat. And so it is a really great use case. It didn't get much into the details around the implementation or the technologies they used within OpenAI. So I was probably leaning toward important instead of essential. But it's definitely a great bellwether and a North Star in terms of what good looks like in terms of implementing these technologies, both for your end customers as well as for your own employees that are out there in customer-facing roles.
Yeah, for sure. Vivek, where'd you come out on this one?
Yeah, I went and played with it. It was quite interesting. And when I asked it, give me the best mulch for my zip code, and it gave me a nice summary, but it didn't. And then I pushed it. Can you just give me the most cost-effective mulch in my territory? And it didn't answer that question. I wanted it to create some graphs, but the user interface is very friendly. I think it's this trend towards this frontline operations. It was a much more, it was from a user and a customer perspective. I like to have answers at the fingertips. I think this is we're going to see it for every single kind of commercial, retail provider. So I'm excited of this future that's evolving. And I was between optional and important, but I'll go with Adam's recommendation that this is important. Every leader should go and try this out if they haven't.
Yeah, see, I was more on the important to essential, but what do you think here, Paul?
I'm actually on the double essential. I think this is a fundamental, what we're seeing again, we saw this Carvana 2 years ago. This is mass customization at super low prices here. And we had Home Depot that used to have all these construction people who knew really well how to do projects, and people loved going to Home Depot and that. And Ace Hardware competed again by having a whole bunch of humans in there. So this is the way to actually put knowledge, digital knowledge, on the frontline workers and for the customers. And I think it's transformative. And the fact that it's in production and it's a non-traditional use case here, AI leaders need to be aware of this. So essential.
Amanda, we're on the essential train here. You gonna derail us?
I won't. I was at least important, so I can get on board with that. One just comment in general, though, about the tool. I know for myself, I worked in retail for years, many years ago, and I find it interesting how it's assisting the in-store associates. So I wonder now how that's going to affect, like, let's say if they start becoming completely dependent and they're no longer learning products and how to use these things like we had to do back in the day. So I wonder what's going to happen if, let's say, the technology dies or something in the store. Is that going to create some sort of an instance in store that these associates, somebody asks a simple question, they're saying, well, I don't know, the computer tells me everything. So I think it's just, in general, it's just a comment about the technology. and how it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But yeah, I could go essential, but yeah, I could live with that.
All righty, essential it is. Pankaj, next, please.
The next one that we have for today comes from Meta, and they have introduced Locate 3D.
Yeah, fascinating new model from our friends at Meta, being able to sample reality and go from simple verbal models into something in the three-dimensional realm. What do you think here, Amanda?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I didn't do the full-on demo and dig into it. I kind of just stayed high level with this one. But I think it's an interesting concept with the whole 3D and the open sourcing of this. So, I mean, I could go in important, but again, I mean, when you look at this, I mean, it's a demo, it's a product announcement. So, you know, if others think it's just optional, I'm good with that as well. I think it's kind of an interesting concept pulled together here.
Vivek, where'd you land?
Yeah, ours are important for one reason, that this kind of democratizes how you do vision-based localization. And this, you know, Meta has a lot of data from their VR headsets and their upcoming glasses, and they're looking to do continuous monitoring of the environment. And this is where I think the sensorless understanding of reality, I think it'll unlock a lot of potential for robotics, as well as other types of like warehousing, identifying where things are, and always remembering it. And if I'm wearing my glasses, I'll remember where I put my keys. So this is going to be the next sort of frontier that we are going to look at, and that's why I give it an important.
All right, important. What do you think here, Adam?
I was in the optional camp. I felt it was just a little too far forward looking, and our leaders have way too much on their plate already to be spending time thinking about this. Google Vertex already offers this kind of capability as well. So in some way, it's a fast follower playing catch up. It's good news for Meta. It's good news for open source, but it's not really news for our leader.
All right, Paul, I'm headed for optional. What are you looking at?
Yeah, optional everyday miracle.
All right, optional it is. Pankaj, next.
The next one comes from VentureBeat and talks about how the Ottawa Hospital uses AI ambient voice capture to reduce physician burnout by 70% and achieve 97% patient satisfaction.
Yeah, there's a study in the American Medical Association, not of the Canadians, that said one of the critical things of burnout for doctors, especially general practitioners, was this issue of dealing with the documentation of the visit. So we see a similar thing here. What do you think on this, Vivek?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, John. And I'm married to an internal medicine and primary care physician, so I know firsthand how much stress that is to do these notes. So, you know, what these guys have done is, again, with partnership with Microsoft and their that physician platform, are able to look at just record ambient voice. And I saw ambient voice and then create notes, CPT codes, the procedure codes, and capture all of these information. I think one thing that I found was interesting here is because they have so much data from the Nuance partnership that they are able to create these fine-tuned models who can understand this better, right? So there are a lot of these tools available already. There are a lot of different companies providing this. They're integrated into the EHR, the electronic health record systems. But these guys have a little bit of an edge. I was between an optional and important. I ended up giving this an important because I think now we're getting to voice first interfaces, and this is a great example for our leader to utilize. The one thing I would have really preferred, understanding how many patients consented for this. It did lead, the patients who utilized it, they actually had a high satisfaction rate, but that data would have been helpful. So.
Yeah, fascinating. What do you think here, Adam?
I felt like it was an important use case. I would have liked to, as Vivek alluded to, seen a little more detail, a few more numbers. They sort of speak to the results, but they don't actually show us the results they achieved. So it was a little weak in my book, and I was on the fence with optional.
Interesting. I was leaning much more important. I mean, here we've got a documented thing and a huge issue in the middle of healthcare. But what do you think, Amanda?
I think it's interesting how the article was laid out because it's all about the physician, but everything I hear about with AI in healthcare is about the patient experience. So I thought that was interesting. It kind of flips that on its head. But yeah, I could go important on this one.
I guess, John, I would challenge just like, how is it applicable to other industries? This is great, but it's also a model that's built specifically for physicians. So what is our enterprise leader going to do with this?
Yeah, but I was thinking more like if I'm in the H&R block and a tax assistant or HR onboarding consultations, there are a variety of ways where voice can capture so many interactions. So that's why I think it's just voice is going to be critical as we move through this evolution.
And we discussed that and we all agree, but I don't see how this article helps move that conversation forward.
Yeah.
I'm okay with important. It is pretty extraordinary. Seems a little too focused industry specifically.
Well, I think any industry where the documentation of the interaction has design, billing, or legal implications. So, depositions, when you're, the ability to do more with the kind of things that are recorded, like, this being recorded in terms of, voice, I think focus groups, engineering attributes, the kind of stuff that actually, I don't know how Walmart collected their data. Well, yeah, I do. They scrape the web, but you can imagine focus groups entering the Walmart model. And to me, it all built on, this basic idea of a conversation as data. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's how I would think about generalizing. What do you think here, Paul?
Yeah, I think we've talked in the past when it's essential for a specific industry, but FYI for others important, but definitely important.
All right, except when the king of the situation here decides it's essential. Not going to be the case here. We're going to go important. All right, next.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from OpenAI. So OpenAI has introduced a functionality to do RFT within its API. And this particular article talks about various RFT use cases.
Yeah, very interesting here. And I think some very practical, illustrations of how you can use reinforcement learning to drive all kinds of things. What do you think here, Adam?
I put this solidly in the important camp. It definitely has some great use cases. Just to back up for a second, so RFT, that's reinforcement fine tuning, and the idea here is that you don't just need a whole bunch of training data, that you can over time basically course correct a model and give it feedback so it can continue to learn. And you also you grade it effectively, or have it grade itself on how well it does tasks so that it can improve on those tasks over time. So it is a slightly different approach, and a very important one for a few reasons. As I said, you can sort of customize the quality control and tell it what good looks like. Additionally, you don't need those massive data sets, and it does continue to improve over time. So it's definitely something at least to pass along to anyone in your organization that might be looking at building and training and subsequently fine-tuning models.
Yeah. What did you think, Amanda?
Yeah, I'm not important for this one. I liked the different use cases that it walked through. I mean, they weren't deep in depth, but it was enough to gather some information, again, on some examples and use cases. So I really liked that. And yeah, I think this was easy to understand as well, that you don't have to go in there and dig in. I know you said that a lot of times we can just use ChatGPT to go through these, but again, I think this is pretty digestible as well. So I'd rate this important.
Vivek, where are we?
Yeah, no, both. Well, I'm with Adam and Amanda that this, especially for me, it was more when you have less data to validate the outputs, that this helps with those high accuracy domains like medicine, finance, areas where we can actually now build using RFT, those use cases. So I'm important in this article.
All right, Paul, we're headed for a board. What do you think here?
I give my vote to the chalk, John.
All right, babe, important it is. Great use cases in terms of how to use reinforcement fine tuning to move your models forward in very practical ways. All right, next, Pankaj.
Next one comes from Google, and they are advancing the frontier of video understanding with Gemini 2.5.
Yes, really interesting in terms of the ability to manipulate, change, track, understand video. What do you think here, Amanda?
Yeah, so from the just basics of what this is, yes, it's about understanding video and things like this. So from that aspect of things, anything that's being done now in that area, I would say it's essential. It's important because we need to start figuring that out. But to me, it's literally just a product announcement. So I dragged myself all the way from that, and the concept's important and it's interesting to look at this too. It's a product announcement, so I'm back down to optional.
All right, we're looking at optional here, Vivek.
Yeah, everyday miracle optional. This is understanding video is important idea, but I don't think
Yeah.
that we can.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we Jeff Brayport and I many years ago did a thing for Avid Video, which had just a teeny amount of this capability. It was a fantastic video editor back then. It was just, I mean, this thing like the ability to create a simulation based on concepts. What do you think here, Adam?
I was on the fence with important. I mean, I've heard before about how these these tools can process video, and just from this, I actually had a little test and a play. Experimented this evening. I went to Kohl's, which is our local supermarket. I went to their webpage, and I just held up my phone and I recorded a quick video while I scrolled through all these items for sale. And then I just put that into Gemini and said, "Give me a list of all the products in the video, their price, and what % off they are." And it started to really have me think about some of the other ways where you can really much more effectively and quickly capture information with video rather than a bunch of photographs or images.
Yeah.
Whether it's scanning around a room or for inventory or looking at page after page in a book and scanning them effectively.
Sure.
I think there's a lot that could come from this, and this article really helped bring that to light for me.
Yes.
Additionally, the way that it exposes its reasoning, it was you could see where it's saying, okay, the user wants a clean table of products. The video scrolls through multiple rows. I'm going to have to pause the video at each stable view of a product row. Like, you could really get that transparency into how the model was approaching solving the problem. So it was actually quite elucidating for me, but it is stuff that for the most part we've heard about before. It just gave it a little additional focus for me. So I was on the fence, potentially important.
So interesting, that I've been playing around with this idea that all the world's a barcode. I mean, when you think about our relationship with reality, data input, and augmentation as kind of a triumvirate, if you will, this is, really bi-directional. That's wonderful. You're taking a video of, of Kohl's, food and so forth, and then you're letting the machine augment that for you. I mean, that can obviously has huge implications for robotics and so forth, but it's just that's an interesting quote from Ashish. That Ashish actually wrote that back when we were talking about the audio, but I think it's relevant here too. So, all right, we're kind of headed for important here. Amanda, where are you on this?
Yeah, I'm still at optional. Just to be honest, but I can go for important.
Paul?
It's optional, but I do want to highlight, I think Google's really, in the last 6 months, has been delivering and not talking. So I think that's really been a change. Second is over the weekend, Elon Musk noted how well the Gemini 2.5 deep research is doing as well. So I think this is another step forward in that. Last, I would say, this feels to me like the early days of meeting notes, that it's probably 80% good, Adam, for your, but the last 20%, it just doesn't get right. So it's not yet solving the problem here, but give it 6 months. But for all those reasons, optional.
All right, Vivek, optional, important. What do you think?
No, I can be important. I'm with Adam now. I think after hearing about his explanation. So, yeah.
All right, important it is. Engaged. Our last article, please.
Last one is about Walmart Fashion and how they are using AI to cut production times to 6 to 8 weeks.
I just want to point out that Ashish agreed with my judgment here. Thank you, Ashish. Brilliant of you. Okay. Yeah. Amazing. I mean, it's out there scraping. I mean, think about Walmart. They say they're taking fast fashion from 6 to 8 months down to 6 to 8 weeks. So constantly monitoring the internet as, if you will, a collective desire of what kind of fashion they want. Unbelievable. Vivek, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a nice back pocket article for anyone in sort of manufacturing and concept based. To your point, John, they were able to reduce the time to design to production from 6 months to 6 weeks. Potentially, if those, I don't know exact numbers, they don't talk about it, but it increases efficiency, there's ROI impact, and this is just the first use case. This is just fashion. They could do this for food trends. They could do this for cosmetic trends. Again, there's so many other opportunities that they have. So I think from an AI leader's perspective, this is a great use case to leverage and advocate for funding to incorporate AI into their workflows. So,
Adam, I know in the pregame you had this as optional. What do you think?
It's just really light on detail. They talk about the results and it's a cool idea, but if I'm another company, what am I going to do with this?
Well, it's interesting. I sent it off to our friend and client Jonathan Isaacson over at Gemline, because they're a promotional products company and they spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the trends are. I think there are a lot of companies that do. That's what it's fascinating. What do you think, Amanda?
So I think two things here. One is working in the retail industry for many years in fashion and many different retailers, that buyers and planners hate this stuff. So to get them on board where they're not going to really be in the trends, number one, within a company and legacy thinking, and many companies like Macy's, things like this, that's going to be tough sell, because I've been there before in these kind of things. Number two is, this sounds great on paper. So it's like, we're going to be able to crank out products. Okay, great. But do you have money for the materials? Do you have money to actually put these things into production, get them out on time? So I think it's great on paper. And I think it's an interesting concept. I don't think there's a lot in the article like Adam, but just in general, when you first hear this, it sounds great, like the next thing since sliced bread. But again, in reality, is this practical within retail companies? I don't know the answer to that right now. So I'm definitely optional.
Yeah, the thing is, Walmart, you have to remember the scale of Walmart. It's a little bit higher than half the GDP of Australia is their revenue. I mean, it's a country. It's not a company. Vivek, where are you on this?
No, that's why, as I mentioned, I originally mentioned that I was important for a lot of the same reasons that you guys are talking about. This is a big company to be able to update their whole workflow to incorporate this trend to product theme. So
yeah, sure. Paul, help us out here. Important, optional, essential?
I had important here. I mean, Walmart now knows it's an intergalactic war with Amazon and the technology around e-commerce, spending millions. So it needs to be watched. Important.
All right, important it is. I was almost to essential on this one, but we've got one essential today. All right, Paul, what's coming up this evening?
On tonight's Learning Lab, we're going to be reviewing OpenAI's ChatGPT Teams product. So OpenAI has a consumer products, free, $20 a month, $200 a month. They also have two products for businesses, Teams and Enterprise. And we now are recommending to companies that don't have a secure chatbot to use OpenAI ChatGPT Teams for $30 a month to put confidential information there, like your contracts and everything else, so executives and their teams can really start learning the power of that. So join us at 7 o'clock Eastern, and you sign up via Meetup.
Yes, and you can also invite anyone you'd like for that. It's a completely open forum and a great way to learn. All right, Adam, Amanda, Vivek, Ankaj, any announcements? All right, everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. Let's start off your AI week. We've got 4 importance, 1 optional, 1 essential. Ankaj, you have the tote board for us here. All right. So Lowe's putting expertise into every hand is essential. Then we've got fantastic new capabilities, and I can't believe we've got this massive new 3D model, state of the art for locating objects in real world environments, and that's optional. There we are, everyday miracles. All right, we'll see you all tomorrow morning, if you're in the East Coast of the United States and around the world. See ya. Bye-bye.